there's a reliability issue. Like if it cuts out, it doesn't matter how fast it is, you know. So hopefully the little technical glitch we had early on was not related to my internet. We shall see. Let me know if you see any more glitches, and we will figure this out. Jub jub. So a bet check bet here. It's usually a value line, but I'm top of the range. Like folding everything, it's hard to call that river. 3-bet, bet check bet, aces on 9xx, 9x. Yeah, it's hard to call that river because it's such a value heavy line. Players just like he is not, and not just players, but this guy is not that likely to bluff there. But I have to call. I have to call. He's not. It's not like he's the most passive player. You know what I mean? If he gets really passive, that's kind of an interesting question. Like, at what point do you start folding your entire range to like simple lines like bet check bet? I imagine most of you never do, you know, but I don't think that's theoretically correct. I think there are player types where in a 3-bet pot, if they go bet check bet, even if the board is like 9-5-2 and you have pocket jacks, there are some players you should be folding there. You know what I mean? Or you have pocket queens. A player 3-bets you pre-flop, you call turn, and he bets river, and the board's like 2-2-2. I mean, in your hands, it's top of your range. But there are players that never barrel there without aces or kings, you know, like those old guys. So my hunch is that most people aren't folding as much as they should versus certain player profiles, myself included. Can we draw anything from that dude's size? Like, so I think the flop was pretty standard. He goes half, turns check check. River, he goes a little bigger. 70%. Yeah, a little bigger on the river, but I just can't. I can't fold there. Can't fold. I wonder how low of a 1-win soft flop it would take for me to fold. Like 42? I think I could fold at 42. He used 46, so I can't fold to 46. I think the fish is likely to call, so I'm gonna call. And then I'm gonna bet. I'm gonna bet like half, smallish here. Nine, 8, what are we doing here? And then maybe we overbet the river. Seriously, did not see that one coming. Wow. I was like, what does he have? What? Like, that just didn't make sense. And there's too little left. The flush didn't get there. He would have raised anything else on the turn. Like, he would have had to have gotten there on the river. Like, ace 5 and 6-5 are the only two hands that make sense. You know? It's two hands. Nothing else makes sense. So yeah, there's no folding there after two hands because he raises every set, this player. Would have been easier if he just jammed the turn. I wonder if we went lower if he would have jammed. Probably not. He's kind of passive. I was just thinking, could I have taken a little more time with that decision? But I don't think I need to. I think like it was pretty straightforward. He reps nothing. I mean, literally 2 hands, and there's so little money left. I mean, the funny thing is players so rarely bluff when there's that little money left. You know what I mean? But it's so hard to put him on hands. The antiquity, I see you as well. To see if he really has queens. So you're making. We definitely should not bet on the turn there. You don't. So you're implying you would bet to bet for information. That's a bad idea. You don't want to bet for information. You should not bet that turn. To see if he has queens. So you find out he has queens, great, you just put money in with the worst hand. You know what I mean? Like seeing if someone has seeing if someone has a hand is not a good reason for betting a hand. People bet the turn too much in that spot. And alternatively, as the C better, you know, there's some players where you bet flop check call your entire range because people just they stab. If they floated you with a bluff, they stab, and if they have a worse value hand, they stab. People just stab way too much. So yeah, the price of information is information is not worth very much money. They'll like paying for information is rarely a good idea. The only place that ever makes sense is if it's essentially like a break-even decision. You get down to the river and you're like, well, I could call or I could fold. This guy's really balanced. I feel like it's a break-even call. Then you call because you gain information, right? And the information moves it from oh, my wife didn't turn in the cable modem. Yeah, I'm gonna hold on to it for another week or so, just in case. It doesn't cost me anymore. I canceled my service, but in case I have to turn it back on. If you bet jacks there, tell me what worse hand calls on the 9-9 board. Like what worse hand calls? Do you think he shows up with like 5s there and calls or 10s? I mean, you're only going to get called when he's like slow playing queens, kings, or aces, right? Or he's like about to check raise you with a 9. So not a good idea to bet. You could argue, well, do I bet for protection? The only time you bet for protection, like it's important to protect your hand. Like, okay, so this is a speech I give my students all the time. We bet in poker for one of 3 reasons. The first is to make a better hand fold, which obviously we're not doing there. The second is to get called by a worse hand, which I don't think is really happening. I mean, maybe somehow he's got 10s, you know, like the only possible thing is 10s, but he's at least as likely to have queens, kings, or aces, right? If you discount queens, kings, or aces by 50%, like sometimes he bets the turn, sometimes he checks, then it's more likely, since there's 3 of those, that he's got queens, kings, or aces than it is that he's got 10s, right? Some people don't 3-bet 10s. That's kind of a wide value 3-bet out of position there. So, you know, we already have to discount 10. So it's more likely if you compare 10s to overpairs, it's more likely he's got overpairs. And then what else? Like yeah, maybe he's got ace king, and ace king has 6 outs versus you, but that's not all he has. People love to, if you think about his 3-bet bluffs, people love to 3-bet like ace 5, ace 2. I do 6-5. So if he's got something like 6-5, I forget what the low cards were, but maybe he has, you know, maybe he has 5 outs if he has a small pair, or he could be drawing dead if he has 2 undercards, or he could have 3 outs if he has ace 3. So if someone mostly has like 3 outs or less with their hands that you're beating, you don't need to protect. You know what I mean? When there's still value hands in your opponent's range, you don't need to protect. Value hands that beat you, it's not worth trying to protect. And the third reason is protection. That's why I don't know if I said that. Second reason is to get called by worse. And third reason is to protect. If reason 1 and 2 still don't apply, there may sometimes be a reason to bet, and that's for protection when, you know, all of your opponent's range is unpaired hands. Like, and I'll give you an example on the last bit. I'll have to sit out to really think about it. So let me give you an example of when I call it where you bet, where if you bet, you don't get called by worse and you don't make a better hand fold. I call that your merge point. You're right at the ugly spot where, you know, you bet all the worse hands fold and all the better hands call. That's a bad spot to be. That's a bad spot to bet. It's a good spot to induce. Now if you check, well, now you get all these worse hands to bet, right? So checking becomes way better when you're at that merge point. And we were kind of at the merge point there with jacks. 10s would also be the merge point. So another example is, let's say you 3-bet small blind versus button. And actually, I mean, that'd be the same thing. Let's say you 3-bet ace 5 and the flop or let's say you 3-bet 6-5, okay, and the flop comes down 5-4-4, okay, or let's say you 3-bet, a better example, let's say you 3-bet 8-7 and the flop comes down 7-5-5, okay, so you have top pair, bad kicker. Now if you bet, he's going to call with all the overpairs, right? And he's going to, he probably would fold like 2s. He's probably going to fold hands like king jack. You know what I mean? If you bet, so you have to start saying, well, if I bet there 8-7 on 7-5-5, what worse hands are calling? Maybe 6s, you know, but all the 7s are better than yours. All those overpairs are better than yours. So the only reason to bet, like if you look at reason 2, is he calling with worse? I'll go ahead and sit back in. Now that I have an example in front of you, is he calling with worse? Well, maybe he floats there with like ace queen, ace jack, you know, like 10, 9, 8, but you're blocking the 8 if you have 8-7 on a 7-5-5. So you are kind of at the merge point. The difference with that one is that when you bet, a lot of his, like the majority of his unpaired range there is actually has 6 outers. So the difference with that scenario is that he has all these like most of his range that doesn't beat you, that folds, is a 6 outer. So that's making like a whole big range of 6 outers fold is pretty awesome. So in that case, betting could be okay because at least you're getting all these hands that are ahead of you to fold. Makes sense? But in that spot with jacks, Like his range that we're beating that's going to fold doesn't have that many outs, so there's no reason to bet. Of the 3 reasons that we bet, none of them really apply.